You should not know this.
Could Ted Braden be both Mafia and CIA at the same time?
If you read the Ramparts article and the advert part of it, it does basically say, these are my skills, this is what I can do for you, you pay me to do it. And I can't remember the exact wording of it, but part of that advert is something basically, it's something like non-CIA. It's basically saying, I don't want to work for the CIA anymore. It gives that impression.
He couldn't work for the CIA, right?
Yeah. So there's no doubt, there's absolutely no doubt that he was CIA. More covert than the SOG. I mean, he was going off to these meetings, which none of the other guys were. The non-fighting kind of CIA guys, not part of the battle itself. This is the story in my head. I think he was a CIA agent, and I think he was working for the SOG, and I think when he decided to desert and he was in Fort Dix and he came out, I think that was the end of his CIA life. However, we do know that he had some kind of protection that kind of indicates that he maybe was still working for something. But I just got a feeling that in the Ramparts article, he seems to be quite angry about the CIA. So I think there was a cutoff point. But that doesn't stop maybe the protection from a person who was a friend of his, that we've discussed. So maybe that was an individual protection rather than an organizational protection. I mean, I'm back and forth on this, and this is why I always keep bringing up this question about what side of the fence was he on. The Hollywood answer is that he was always CIA. Even when he was drunk, even when he was a trucker, even when he was in the biker gangs, even when he was in the mafia, he was always a CIA agent, even when he was robbing banks, even when he was stealing, truckfuls of whiskey. Do I think that was the case? I tend to lean against it. I've just got a feeling that a CIA agent wouldn't do those things. But, I may be wrong. I may be completely naive here. My personal opinion, if I went with my head, would be that he was essentially cut off from the CIA at the point when he decided to, vacate Vietnam. I think that, they were after him. They arrested him. They brought him back. He was in Fort Dix, and I think that was probably the cutoff point. But the question you asked me was he CIA and Mafia? Was he those at the same time? That would mean that he was some kind of informant.
Why would working for both the Mafia and the CIA demand he be an informant? This guy didn't play by the rules. Why couldn't he have been loyal to both? He was a CIA agent, and he did loyally work for them. He also found a nice way to profit from the Mafia, so he was loyal to them without being an informant. Possible?
Surely, if he was working for the CIA, they would know every step he was taking, wouldn't they?
They might not care if he was beneficial to them.
So you don't think they would have a problem with him essentially being a criminal?
Not if he's one of 3 men on the planet capable of doing whatever they needed him to do.
The way he placed that advert, and I wish I could remember the exact wording, but it was basically, it was something non-CIA. I can't remember the words. Drew may remember the words exactly, but
I've got the magazine.
It's something about non-CIA.
It should be within reach.
Yeah, it is. It's
non-CIA supported employer. It's Ted speak.
But that's because they would not hire him, right?
So that, but if they're not hiring him, he's not part. He's not part of them then.
Well, they kicked him out. I mean,
exactly.
The Army
officially.
kicked him out. The Army kicked him out.
Yeah, it's true.
But he
that
didn't
is
want to
true.
work for the CIA.
Right.
I've got it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you were really saying is that he was non-military, but he was essentially still an agent.
Possible.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing about this gentleman, this guy. This is why he is so enthralling. And I really hope the people who have been introduced to Ted Braden for maybe the first time, this is episode 7. Maybe you were introduced to Ted 7 weeks ago. I mean, I hope you're enjoying it because it's a story and we're just trying to work out what he was. I mean, was he... But, I mean, yeah, it's a tough one. It really is.
If you suppose, just for the sake of argument, that he was still CIA during the time that the Ramparts interview happened in 1967, there's kind of a motive there potentially for the Ramparts article, apart from just trying to get a job. Because it could have been another situation where if he was still working for the CIA, maybe they put him up to this interview to try to get hired by a less than clean operation so he could be an informant for that operation, which is maybe how he ended up with the mafia or somewhere else. And the whole Ramparts article itself could have been kind of a ploy.
A ruse.
A ruse, yeah.
He says the name Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group in a 1967 widely distributed magazine. That's mind-blowing.
Surely the CIA would have been slightly upset with him about the fact that he revealed
yes, because the CIA was running SOG for the first 2 or 3 years when he was in it. They were fully running it.
And he talked about how the CIA was running the operation in Congo, too.
Right.
I'm not sure if that was well known before this article came out, but I mean...
Oh, yeah, exposed the CIA.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is what Ramparts like to do. Ramparts was counterculture, anti-Vietnam. The editor, Donald Duncan, was a Special Forces member who left Vietnam. He refused a promotion because he saw that Vietnam was nothing but a politician's war and an endless war. So he basically dropped out when he could. He didn't go AWOL like Braden, but he, told them he didn't want the promotion, that he was going to leave the war because he didn't believe in it. And then he becomes one of the leading advocates against the war.
In the Premier League, is there a player who's very good, but a troublemaker off the pitch?
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, there was my favourite footballer of all time was probably George Best. He was an Irish football player.
Here's where I'm going, is that a professional athlete who is great on the field or the pitch, but is problem off, is rarely kicked off the team. They put up with a lot because he performs for them. Ted Braden could be the same. He's trouble off the field, but he performs. He gets the job done. Why would they kick him out? Why would they have a problem with him working for the mafia if he is doing what they need him to do?
You're saying he's like John McEnroe, aren't you? He's like, do you know who John McEnroe is? A very famous American tennis player. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, he was always in trouble, but he was one of the greatest tennis players of all time.
It's great.
They didn't kick him out, did they?
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, I mean, going back to that story that we spoke about last episode, this reaction time, this taking that guy down in a split, in a split second. I mean, yeah, obviously they looked at his skills and said this guy is very good at a lot of things. I mean, he was definitely in the top 10 of all military skydivers of all time. He was very good at lots of different things. Yeah, I do see where you're coming from. It's just the fact that he seems a little bit angry with this, with the world in that Ramparts article, and he very specifically says, I want to be employed by non-CIA.
Yeah, I have it right here. Willing to organize and direct insurgency or counterinsurgency teams, whichever is appropriate to non-CIA supported employer. Then he says references can be checked with U.S. Army, U.S. Special Forces, CIA, and 5 Commando Congo. So he's kind of like speaking out of both sides. I don't want to work for the CIA, but if you want, you can check with them about me. That's kind of funny. Like obviously, how can you check with the CIA? Yeah, is Ted Braden good? Because we were thinking about hiring him for a job.
And what exactly is a bad reference for his line of work?
Yeah, he failed. It is funny.
This guy's insane. Great.
It's also funny that Tim gave a reference of an Irishman, and Ted Braden's predominantly Irish-American. Decker, Donovan, surnames, both sides of his family. He's predominantly, I'd say 80% Irish-American. So it's funny that he gave an Irish reference for an Irish guy.
D, I was just going to ask, what's your opinion? I mean, what do you think? Do you think he was CIA the whole time, or what do you think?
Boy, I'll say this honestly. I guess the honest answer is I don't know yet. We haven't found evidence yet. I'm very into evidence before I commit. And it's possible. I think it's possible. Ian, what do you think?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he was still CIA at the point of the Ramparts article. But I don't know. He does slam the CIA so much, though, and just reveals so much that probably wasn't well known or known about some not so savory things the CIA was doing in Africa. So
He worked for a dictator. He has proven time and time again he will do anything for money, work for anyone. He doesn't care. If the CIA would hire him back, he'd gladly take the check. Yeah, good talk. So Ted deserted Vietnam. A lot of people don't even know what that means.
Mostly comes up during the U.S. Civil War, where people on either side, North and South, just decided not to fight anymore or go home and tend to their family. And especially towards the end of that war, they would just literally leave. They would just sneak out at night, leave. And in the early years of the U.S. Civil War, of course, they would hang you for desertion, because that was the only way they could control, mass desertions. Because if your guys don't show up, you're going to really lose the battle if you got 10 against 100, so to speak. So desertion is really leaving active battle, which Ted did. Vietnam was an active war. It was still going on. It did not end until the fall of Saigon. And he wanted to stay longer, but at some point he just makes his own decision to leave an active battle, which is not the way you do things. He probably could have put in to leave the war through the proper channels and gotten out, because he was already a World War II veteran. Desertion during wartime is a act of such proportion that they consider hanging you.
He had already been in Vietnam twice as long as most of the guys. He wanted to stay. The Army said, no, you can't. So he said, well, I'm going to leave on my own accord, and he deserted. That was planning. He planned ahead. And then he went to the Congo to double his money. Is there anything more to it, or is it that simple?
It's that simple. He just didn't care. He just didn't want to put in the paperwork to leave, even though he wanted us. He did put in to stay longer in Vietnam. And as you said, they rejected it for some odd reason. Could have been because of the incident that happened there with the friendly, but we don't know. And he just decides to leave. I think it was more of him in his mind, a question of authority. Like, I don't have to tell you I'm leaving. I'm just going to leave. And his boss at that time, they called him the boss, was a colonel named Scotty Crerar, who really liked Ted Braden. And when he was up on the charges at Fort Dix for desertion, Scotty Crerar was informed of it and thought he was going to be able to at least write a letter or, put in a good word for Ted, because Colonel Crerar really thought that Braden was left in combat way too long. Between World War II and Vietnam, he thought it was really the Army's fault what happened to Braden. And they took part of the blame, so that they should go easy on him for the fact that they had left him in combat for so long. And another important, just deep diving Ted Braden regarding Colonel Scotty Crerar is that he had read the Ramparts article, and Colonel Scotty said it was not written in the way that he recalled Ted Braden, the way Ted Braden would speak. He thought it was heavily edited. So that could kind of bring in some CIA type conspiracies. He said, I read that article in Ramparts, and it doesn't seem to be from the Ted Braden I recalled.
Let's do a little experiment here. Do you guys remember how much money he was making in Vietnam and then in the Congo?
$800 a month, and then $1,600 in Congo.
That's a lot of money, guys.
And 66.
So $800 a month is $8,000 a month. $800 a month is $8,000 a month?
I mean, would he be sending money back to family, or would he be...
No
where
way.
would that money be going? You don't think so? He would just be enjoying himself?
I don't think so. No, from what I know, I doubt it. He's too self-centered.
But, I mean, where could you... I mean, this is probably a really silly question. Where could you spend the money? I mean, apart from down the bar, where could you spend the money? I mean, could you spend the money in Vietnam?
And we don't know if he gambled. That's what we still don't know.
Yeah. I was thinking about this today. He was obviously getting his legitimate $800 a month, but he was also, as we know, probably having, as we're calling them now, side hustles in Vietnam as well. So he was probably getting money on the back. But so, I mean, he was earning or getting a heck of a lot of money. So where was all the money going?
Yeah, he still said it wasn't enough.
That's a good question.
No way did he make that as a truck driver.
No way.
This is the thing. It's all about money with Ted, and I can see him kind of being quite frivolous with it. There's people who save money and there's people who spend money. There is. And was he just a spender? Was he just someone who just came through his hands and it was straight out? And, and maybe by that point the alcohol was something, a bottle of whiskey here, bottle of wine here. It all adds up. It all adds up.
I'm D. Raj with Tim Wallace, Drew Beeson, and Ian Glover. And Fort Dix, after the Congo, after the desertion, we go to Fort Dix. And they put Ted in solitary confinement, which doesn't make sense to me because it worked out very well for Ted in the end. So why did they shove him in solitary confinement for a long time to begin with? Do you guys know?
No idea. He had everything he wanted. He had a TV set in his cell. He had cigars with filters on them, which was absolutely prohibited at Fort Dix because the inmates would stop up the toilets with cigarette butt filters, cigar filters, anything like that. I think he was smoking Hava Tampa or something.
Yeah, with a wood tip. Ooh.
The one line that Braden said to Colonel Birch, of course, he was captain at that time, but the one line that always stuck out in his head that he would never forget Braden saying was, "Don't worry, sir, this will all work out." It never left him. I mean, he was just could not get over the way this guy was being treated. The chief of staff of the entire U.S. Army calls down and says, we're not going to court-martial this guy today. We're just going to let him go with a general discharge and a slap on the wrist to never join the Army again. So I don't know if the confinement was probably just, I think, an attempt to keep him from maybe talking to other inmates or something. That's all I could think of.
123 in 14 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty long time. How did he know everything was going to be all right?
Yeah, that's confidence. Was it delusional, or did somebody call him and tell him what was going to happen?
Yeah, I think he had reason to be confident. I think he knew that he didn't have a whole lot to worry about, is my guess. I mean, whether it was protection from a particular person, or if, we go back to conspiracy land, maybe he knew he wasn't going to be charged full strength for desertion because maybe he didn't really desert. Maybe he was transferred from Vietnam to the Congo by the CIA, which, this seems like the unlikely case, but just for the sake of possibility, it's probably worth mentioning that could be the thing, and that they were just arrested him for desertion to kind of save face. And that was actually mentioned by Hank Birch, too, that he talked to somebody who thought that very thing. And let's see if I can find that. He talked to somebody. Yeah, another major, that's right, wearing an Inspector General branch insignia on his uniform, who said that Braden was operating as a CIA plant in the Congo when he was recognized, and to save face, he was grabbed and charged with being AWOL, and the whole thing was staged. So, I mean, believe that if you want to, but that does, if that was the case.
It's a rabbit hole. That's a rabbit hole, but it could be a real rabbit hole.
Who knows?
But he was actually really there.
The Congo?
I think he said, I thought he said that they had spotted him in Vietnam, not the Congo, back in Vietnam.
Oh, so that just, Ramparts then can't be believed at face value anymore.
I think Hank's story was the other major told him that they had spotted Braden back in Vietnam in like the early 70s, which was really weird because they knew they were talking about the same guy. It just came up in conversation with Hank and another major at Fort Jackson is what I'm thinking of, where they had spotted him in Vietnam.
Without getting too conspiratorial.
But I think he did say the Congo was a cover-up. You're right about that. The Congo was a ruse.
Without getting too conspiratorial here, I always used to think that one of the reasons why Ted was kind of let off was that he knew stuff, right? He knew things about things. But, obviously, without going into too much detail, there was a gentleman, a very nasty gentleman, very famous gentleman who was oft recently in his prison cell. I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about. Let's imagine Ted did know some things that shouldn't really get out. I mean, it wouldn't take much for him to be dispatched, would it?
No.
So why was he let off?
He could have done what's called a dead man switch. Well, I don't know if I can say those two words, but you know what that means? It means if something happens to me, my buddy that you'll never know is going to put something in the mail. Yeah, exposing everything.
That's what I was thinking.
That's very Ted Braden too.
Something happens to me, something hits the mail. My buddy's going to mail something from Pennsylvania, and it's going to blow the lid off of it.
Yeah, I've got a post office box in wherever, and my friend's got the key to that, and inside that is some documentation that proves what I've said. It's true. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I can imagine. But So, but he definitely knew things.
We can agree with that. And I remember Jim Hetrick telling me specifically. Of course, that was Ted's assistant team leader in Vietnam, knew him very well, didn't like him. And Jim made it clear. He said one time that Ted didn't just know about things that were going on in Southeast Asia, CIA-wise. He knew what was going on globally with the CIA. And that really struck me, coming from a guy whose only perspective is Vietnam, about Braden, that he said Ted knew things about the CIA globally, that he stressed that to me. And I thought, wow, like far more than all the dirty deeds in Southeast Asia, running heroin for the tribal leaders in Laos to get more access or whatever they were doing in weird deals the CIA would make. He was specific that Ted knew more than just Southeast Asia. He said globally, like he was even higher up than we thought. I just have a feeling he did something really, really bad.
Did you see that post today on the MacVSOG group?
No.
Basically, what they were saying is from about 1969 to that they think that the Air America was involved with aliens.
Oh my gosh, that's brand new. I have never heard of that. Oh
yeah,
wow, that we're really getting out there.
Don't
we're
record
gonna
this.
Explode now.
No, but
it's already recorded, buddy.
The cat's out the bag and running.
Yeah, okay. It's a very long post. And it's all about the fact that Air America.
I gotta find that. That's crazy.
It's obviously. Well, not well. I mean, I don't know whether I believe in aliens or not, but I mean,
I wonder if Neil Hansen's ever heard of that. Of course,
but
that's
the thing is,
good mutual friend.
We laugh about this. But we know in this world there are things that we don't know about. I mean, I personally don't think we've been visited by aliens, but I don't know. I can't be 100% sure. But I mean, this is a bit of a joke to say this, but I mean, maybe Ted was at Area 51. I mean, we just don't know.
Who knows?
We just don't know what this guy did for
there's something they don't want you to know. Hence the name of this production
podcast. But I mean, you should put a little alien sign on the end of it. But
and then you have the cattle mutilations. I won't get into that.
Is yeah.
We'll leave that off. Don't even go there.
Yeah. No, but I mean, this is the thing. Ted makes you think conspiratorially.
Absolutely.
Your very first question was he CIA and the mafia? I mean...
Well, he was. You just don't know if it was at the same time. I mean, he was certainly running jobs for the wise guys later, and he certainly was CIA when they were running MacVSOG, no doubt. What did he do more work for the CIA after he's let out of Fort Dix? That's a $1 million question.
Ted is offered a deal, and he won't take it unless he gets his wristwatch back. Now, nobody knows what that wristwatch was. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that seems like to blow a deal that's going to grant you freedom for the sake of a piece of jewelry. Yeah, that one has me puzzled. What was so valuable to him about that watch?
I found this little video clip that I sent to you guys a while back, and it was by a military guy, special operations, not Vietnam era, later special ops. And he was talking about wristwatches. And he said, if you were captured overseas or in a foreign war and you were being held by some guerrilla type fighters or whatever, and you only had one thing on you to try to get them to free you, and it was your wristwatch, what wristwatch would that be? What wristwatch is known globally is nice and valuable? Rolex. He said, you want a Rolex because those bad guys know what a Rolex is. And that's why some of those military guys wanted them, because if you got in a bad spot, here, take my Rolex. It could have been that, because I don't think it was something sentimental, like something from his dad. Ted doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. It could have been a spy op type thing. Maybe it had an altimeter. And I think we looked into that. Like if it had, an altimeter on it would be great for a skydiver, especially at the level of a Braden. But I don't think those were really quite available in 67. So I lean to think it was a Rolex.
The Rolex story is absolutely 100% true. There is a website. I can't remember the name of it. It's something like militaryrolexes.com. I mean, it's all about this story. Basically, you're stuck in even in the middle of the jungle, I suppose. They know the value of it. Here, have my Rolex and let me go. But the other thing is there is a MacVSOG type of watch, which I think is a Seiko.
It is a Seiko, yep.
Yeah, which is like I think it's probably more for the I hate to say this, for the lower echelons as opposed to maybe the upper echelons, but it's a watch and it's got like a second dial on it. It was a compass. But if you look at the photo, there's a photograph of Ted in Vietnam in 1966, and he's stood with a couple of other guys. He's shirtless, and you can almost see the watch on there, and it does look very much like a Rolex.
I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Now that Rolex came up, and the whole story of Ted and the watch, I never thought about Rolex till I saw that little video clip by the special ops guy. So I want to go back and ask, who I can still ask, did Ted ever have a Rolex? Because you could buy a Rolex through the PX exchange in the Army, and they were very affordable. And now those watches are worth a literal fortune. But you could buy one very inexpensively through the Army PX, which was a military, made just for the U.S. military by Rolex. So you didn't have to be like crazy rich to buy a Rolex when you were in the Army in Vietnam. I mean, it was probably more than a Seiko, of course, but it wasn't crazy expensive like what they're worth today. Like a mint condition one of those now is like 25 grand.
Did Ted come to Ramparts for the interview, or did Ramparts come to him?
If I had to be wagering on this, I would say that Braden sought out Duncan specifically to try to get some money from him.
Just incredibly candid. There's a ton of detail, like a surprising amount, like the names of people, addresses of buildings he went to, names of a bunch of different officers, both in these mercenary groups. He mentions a CIA officer by name. People who probably don't want their names out there for public viewing. What seems weird to me is that there doesn't seem to be at face value much of an angle apart from seeking a job. But the interview,
was he really seeking a job?
The interview part, it doesn't seem to be about a job.
Was it more revenge or more a job?
He tried to do as much damage as he could with the information he had, it seems like. I mean, he probably could have done more if he wanted to.
Do you think he would have been paid for the interview?
Good
question.
Maybe.
I mean, he was in everything for money.
Think he was wearing his watch?
No, he wouldn't have had his watch then.
No, he didn't get it back.
He didn't get it back.
He didn't get the watch back?
No, he did not get the watch back. He balked at it. He wasn't going to take the deal until he got the watch back, but he caved. He caved on the watch.
Oh, that's very un-Ted-like.
Very un-Ted-like. He did cave. They just weren't going to give it back for whatever reason. I mean, you think if it was, a military Rolex in 67, it's valuable, but it's not crazy valuable like it is today. So I don't know why there'd be any qualms in giving it back. So that kind of leans back towards the Inspector Gadget watch. Maybe that's why they couldn't give it back, because it was a CIA toy, like he would get the cutting edge toys in Nam.
Have you ever seen Hank Birch in a Rolex?
That's a good question.
Why wasn't Ted rearrested? I mean, he was like, just revealed a load of information. I mean,
maybe he was working for them still.
Working for him or his friend helping him, we'll never know.
I mean, this is probably a really silly question. Ramparts obviously doesn't exist anymore, does it? I'm assuming.
No, long gone.
Do you know where the offices were Ramparts was?
Well, they were in San Francisco then, and at least Duncan's was.
I have a picture.
I mean, Duncan makes that clear. When Ted walks into the room, Ted asks Duncan for money.
I mean, the reason I ask this question is my ultimate goal is to hear Ted's voice.
Oh, God, I would do anything for that.
Do you think it would have been, excuse me, do you think it would have been a dictator? I mean, Ted comes into the office. I mean, he's going to be speaking this out loud. In 1967, do you think it would have been recorded and then typed?
I don't know what the probably not.
Probably not.
67.
No. I mean, I'm just wondering if there is a cassette tape somewhere in an old dusty.
I'd pay money for it.
People would just say he's AI.
Oh, dear.
Ian, what about Ramparts, being it's new to you? What's the most shocking thing to you about Ramparts?
Oh, well, apart from all the detail and exposure, I mean, that's a lot of it. Which, I guess, just to circle back, I do think it seems likely that Ted was paid a lot for this, because he discusses a lot of political things, a lot of stuff that we know doesn't really interest Ted. He goes into a lot of details that are non-personal about the conflicts going on in Africa at that time, stuff that would be great for an article, but irrelevant to Ted. So I don't know. The way I kind of picture the whole thing is he strolled in, says, I have this information. What will you give me for this information? And basically info dumped, and they cleaned it up and made a nice narrative out of it. That's kind of what I imagine happening. This wasn't really shocking, but just something a gap in history I didn't know about was just the number of white mercenaries fighting in Congo at that time. I mean, there was other Americans, not very many, I guess, but Canadians, Englishmen.
Belgium.
Yeah, a lot of Belgians. I mean, they had a vested interest in the mineral resources down there, I think, right? And there's some colonialism stuff going on there. And
good research. Western
Europe's been invading Africa in various ways since the beginning of time. But there was a lot of non-African people fighting for different factions in Africa during that time. And just something I learned reading the Ramparts article that I did not know.
I actually do think it was a job advert.
A legitimate job.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize the readership was so big. I mean, Drew mentioned, what was the readership, Drew?
It was sent to people's homes.
Yeah. 250,000, 250,000.
Yeah. I mean, if you, this is what I can do. I'm really good at lots of things. Lots of amazing things in some aspects, and I will be loyal to you if you pay me. And it does kind of tie in. I mean, this is one of the things I've always wondered. Is they're members of the organizations that we're now focusing on. Maybe one of them just picked up, they think, oh, there's a guy who can jump out of a plane. He can, it talks about, I'm sure it talks about armaments. I'm sure I'm good at this. I can.
Talks about truck driving.
Yeah. I've always wondered if someone on the wrong side of the, wrong side of the fence read that article and thought, he sounds interesting. Let's get him in. And I wonder if some of the jobs that Ted did were maybe proving his worth to these guys. Let me show you what I can do.
To Ted, does friend mean useful?
I think so. I mean, what friend means to Ted is not what friend means to most people, I think. I mean, there's probably some calculation, manipulation, and, being friendly to achieve something in the short term or long term. Surrounded himself with people when it suited him to meet his own needs. I don't see Ted as being a very
chummy.
Yeah, chummy, hanging out with people on weekends. The barbecue in the backyard. That just doesn't seem
water skiing.
Yeah, water skiing. Exactly, with the 50s short shorts.
Thanks to be a Fonzie nowadays.
I don't know why. I think it's quite possible that when Ted would disappear from Vietnam, that they would send him to who knows where to do who knows what. And I think a lot of who knows what had to do dress like a local, blend in, and assassinate blank. What did Ted do for the CIA?
He had so many different skills, and I think he was very good at what he did. And I think they used him as a tool, to train other people in what he was good at.
I think it was something big. I think it was specific missions to remove people of power globally and keep it on the hush-hush. And so I think they were extremely concerned about what he knew and keeping that under control.
Yeah, I lean towards training, and then while he was in Vietnam, I'm not sure. Yeah, some other missions that were of a status that was above the knowledge of the Army at that point.
How would Ted have differed, do you think, from James Bond? Whoever wants to take that can.
Come on, Tim. James Bond was English.
Well, yeah. I'm just thinking about you. What we've just been discussing. I mean, we've got this story brewing at the moment about Ted's life, sort of after Vietnam. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, when would he have had time to do, because I think, Drew, when you're saying he was involved in international things, do you mean after, say, like after 1966 when he left, or do you mean during that period? I'm just curious to know when you...
I'd say the 60s.
And maybe he was always a gun for hire. Maybe he was, he's a truck driver. I mean, you don't have to wear a suit to be James Bond. You can be a truck driver. Maybe he just got phone calls and like, could you go and do that for me? And we're thinking that he's working for the mafia, when actually maybe he's being
or both
ordered to go to, I don't know, some foreign country to take someone out.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't know who's on the other end of that phone.
And
we?
The wise guys could have teamed up with the CIA. Of course, when I hear those two put together, I think of a terrible incident that happened in 1963, because a lot of people think that they teamed up for that. So, does the Alphabet guys do anything with the mafia? I'm sure they do.
Yeah, this is the thing about James Bond. You watch the James Bond movies, and actually, the stuff he does is not nice. It's obviously packaged in a nice little bow. But, this is the kind of similar things with Ted. I mean, he was, potentially taking people out. And, I don't think he was so much of a womanizer as James Bond, but he had 3 wives, so maybe. No, I was he like James Bond? He could certainly do things physically back in the day that James Bond could do. But I think he got a little bit crazy.
Ian, did James Bond and Rambo have a baby?
Oh, yeah, James Bond, if he could traverse a jungle. He may have gone for whiskey instead of gin martinis, but he was debonair in a certain way when he had to be.
So we've listened to 7 episodes now, and in light of those 7 episodes, who was Ted Braden?
Ted Braden was an enigma. He was a person that comes along once in a lifetime. He is the military's version of Elvis Presley was to music. It's that rare that someone comes along like him. We've had some tremendous men of valor like Audie Murphy in World War II and guys out of Vietnam that were great. And Jim Shortan, one of those great legends. Billy Waugh, the godfather of special operations. Just these incredible guys. But Braden is even different than them. He's on another plane. He's truly was born with this sense to chase adrenaline and had no fear of anything bad happening, to avoid a word. He did not care. He threw caution to the wind from a young age throughout his entire career, good, bad, ugly. He is a absolute enigma, a once in a lifetime guy. He's the most interesting man in the world that you've never heard of.
Half hero, half villain. Probably more villain than hero. But there's no doubt he did some things for his country. He probably saved a few lives. He almost certainly took away a few lives. But in a nutshell, one of the most interesting people I've ever looked into.
Ted was just, like they were saying, just a lot of different things, a lot of conflicting things. Smart, incredibly fearless and brave, but also corrupt in certain ways and did not value human life in a lot of ways. Obsessed with money, willing to do just about anything to get what he needed, and just an absolutely fascinating person. I don't know. There's so much we don't know, and they're still trying to learn, and that makes him even more interesting.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. That's Drew. That's Tim. That's Ian. I'm D. Raj. Should we do it again? We'll do it again. Let's do it again next week, shall we?
All right.
Absolutely.
High five, everybody. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
See the files behind the series when you subscribe at youshouldnotknowthis.org.